This is William K. Murtaugh, Mert Witness 1, and welcome to another Sunday Mobile-thon. Now, today is going to be an interesting one as we get going on this little chat. We have yet another day that Field McConnell is under house arrest, waiting for his big day in May of this year. That is, if this coronavirus doesn't screw things up and make it to where people have to stay indoors. I would suspect that the hearing and the trial and everything will go forward. It's just there's going to be a workaround because of this virus. Field McConnell may not show up in court because if this is just a preliminary hearing, he doesn't have to. There's the possibility the hearing may be closed to the public, which means that if this happens, it's likely that I will not be going down there. Then again, I might go down because I might be able to get faster access to the court documents this time around instead of waiting for a week like it did the last time. Seems it takes forever for the state of Florida, or not state of Florida, Broward County, to get its paperwork out. So all in good time on that. We'll figure that one out as time goes on. Well, we had a development over the weekend, as I talked about last night on my Saturday Murdathon, and that is that Daniel John Lee, otherwise known as Preacher Dan, is getting sued. He asked for it even on some of his monologues, and he got his wish. He's being sued by multiple plaintiffs, and there are multiple defendants. And while everybody concentrated on Daniel J. Lee, everybody forgot about these potential defendants, or defendants that haven't been served yet. Now, Daniel Lee got served. He's got an actual paper that shows he's going to be sued. The others apparently have not been served yet, where they don't seem to be reacting to the fact that they're in the middle of a civil lawsuit. And one of those people is Timothy Charles Holset. He is one of the defendants in the lawsuit, as is his handler, as is Field McConnell, and others. And this brings up a whole interesting question. Now, Timothy Charles Holset made a little column today, article, I should say, called Operation Sheepdog. And he made yet another claim in this. And that is that he had a job involving the resettlement of immigrants. Now, this is the first time this has come out, if it is true. Don't know when he had the time to have this job in his pizza delivering, newspaper reporting, janitoring, and other things that he has been doing. He somehow found time to work resettling immigrants. So Timothy Holset, somewhere in this little article, wrote that he likes Preacher Dan and he's going to get involved in his stuff. Well, Mr. Holset, this is not voluntary. You are in his stuff because you are a defendant in the lawsuit. And if you were to watch Rebecca's video, it's right there in black and white. that Tim Holset, along with Randy Erickson, Ms. Remington, the lady from Australia, although I don't know how the hell they're going to manage that one, and others are in on this little fiasco. And there are unnamed defendants because you have 5 males and 5 females. So there's defendants running around out there that don't know yet that they're part of this class action, or not class action, this multiple party lawsuit. That there are multiple parties doing the suing, and there's multiple parties doing the defending that are the defendants. I'm really messing up today. Sorry about that. But we have all these defendants and all these plaintiffs. And there are a couple of defendants in here that have not been named. Because when you go through the male defendants that have been named in the suit and the female defendants that have been named in the suit, there's leftovers. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see who these unnamed defendants are. Although I guess you can guess as to a couple of the defendants are. And as far as the female defendants, there might be somebody in Hawaii and elsewhere that might be getting a visit paid from a process server. Now, Timothy, if he is going to get involved in Preacher Dan's shit, he's going to have to do something other than hide under the skirt of his handler and remain in the shadows. His articles on Facebook aren't going to do a bit of good because they're not really getting to that many people anymore. His social media presence, as it were, has diminished considerably. And so by remaining on Facebook and just chattering away is not going to get anywhere. And it's the same reason that him skipping court has caused him diminishment and a loss of message, because he could have given out his message in a public forum, which means going to court and facing the charges against him and getting all kinds of things on the record in the court. But by avoiding appearing in court, Tim Holset has lost a great opportunity to get his message out to the public. And now he's been given a second chance. The problem is, if nobody knows where Tim Holset is, the process server's not going to find him, and he is not going to be able to help Preacher Dan as an exculpatory witness. Because where Timothy Holset is going to matter is in court. Putting crap out on Facebook and his little blog is not going to do any good in court because it's not admissible as evidence. It's hearsay. Timothy Holset would have to be a source of direct evidence, and that direct evidence is Timothy Charles Holset showing up in court. And since the court would be in a state other than the state of Minnesota, he is not going to get arrested. See, this is a kind of a golden goose gift that's been given to Timothy Holset. Number one, if the trial is held in the state of Ohio, Timothy Charles Holset is home free. He can go to court, he can say his piece, and he won't get arrested. Number two, Timothy Charles Holset doesn't have 2 pennies to rub together. So if he's adjudicated in any way in court as being responsible for the actions cited in the court, nothing can be done to him. They don't have any money. He's broke. And the same thing holds true of Preacher Dan, actually. The only thing that the lawyers are going to be able to accomplish in this lawsuit against Preacher Dan is they're going to shut him down. That's it. They're not going to be able to get any money out of Preacher Dan because he'll hide it, declare that he's broke, claim that he has to spend all this money on lawyers to defend himself, or take the great option of defending himself in court. And he's got someone with a lot of experience. Tim Holset has been his own lawyer for years. So Tim Holset could help him in how to do that. And of course you got Kirk, and the other guy out there can give everybody legal advice on how to handle things in court. They seem to be the big experts. So they won't have to spend all this money in court. And Randy's this big deal. She can help everybody out. So this is going to be fun to watch all these people play Perry Mason in this civil action. So Timothy Charles Holset could go ahead and avail himself long enough to get served by a process server. You know, he can go to a hotel room, stay there, and say, okay, I'm here, come serve me, and accept the service. Or they'll even mail it to him like they did me. You know, I came home one day to find a bunch of paperwork on my front door. So they can get the material to you. And you won't have to fear anything, and you'll be able to get into Daniel Lee's stuff. And, you know, Daniel Lee had the balls to accept the service when he could have avoided it. He knew he was going to be sued. He had 4 months warning, and he got sued. And now Timothy Charles Holset is being sued. Now I suppose that someone could contact Timothy Holset's parents and send them the paperwork, putting out in detail the kinds of things that Timmy has been doing to people on the internet. I'm sure they'd love to see that. Not that it seems to matter much to these people. You know, run off a copy down to Tim's daughter's house and let her have copies, and Tim's sister. You know, everybody in Tim's family could be sent these summonses so that they know that Tim is being sought out. You know, one way or another, Tim can be informed of exactly what he's being sued for. And there are people out there in this lawsuit that don't have the luxury of running away from a process server. And I'm speaking specifically of Field McConnell. Field McConnell is in a known location. So it's not going to be that hard for a process server in the state of Florida to go over to Stuart, Florida, and hand Field McConnell the paperwork. Or they could wait until May when Field McConnell's in court and hand them over to Field McConnell or his attorney. And that way Field McConnell will be in on this little fiasco. And there are people like Randy who are in a fixed location, and her whereabouts would be known. For process servers are pretty good investigators. They can figure out where you're at. And so what is going to happen is that she will be served along with these other people. The lone holdout is going to be Timothy Charles Holset, depending on where he is. And since he's this all-important press secretary to the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force, he should have no problem accepting this paperwork from a process server so that he can help fight the war on behalf of Daniel Lee. Because he's part of it. He's being sued. Now, he said in the article that he's not being sued, or has not been sued. Well, guess what, Timmy? You're being sued. You have been named in a lawsuit. You know, you kind of gone 100 degrees there, Timmy. You've gone from being the plaintiff in a lawsuit to being the defendant in a lawsuit. You've gone from the person doing the suing to the person being sued. You know, take a close look at Rebecca's video. Your name is right there for all to see. You're being sued. You know, you and Mr. Lee are going to be able to get together, shake hands, and you're going to be able to get into his stuff because you're going to be with him personally in court, answering the summons that you're going to be given by the process servers once they hunt you all down. It's going to be like a big crass reunion. You're going to be there with all your buddies and females as well. And maybe you can have another one of those parties in a hotel somewhere, and this time not run away. Because if you run away, you're going to be letting Danny down. Because remember, Timmy, you can't get arrested in the state of Ohio. You have not been hit with a felony yet. Now, that might hold true by the time the civil trial comes around. And then you can go ahead and not show up in court. But for right now, you can get the paperwork from the court, find out what exactly it is you're being charged with. Damn, we're having a cannonball run here today. But you can get together and you can say, hey, let's fight this, guys and gals. You know, let's show these people that we're better than they are. We'll be the wolves going after the sheep or whatever. I kind of think when he made the metaphor up, he got things backwards a little bit, but that's fine. But at some point, Tim Holset is going to have to be held accountable for his actions. He's managed to avoid it so far. Now, this is the thing about this lawsuit that Tim needs to think long and hard about, and knows that are the defendants in this lawsuit. This is not a criminal action. This is a civil action. So if you skip out on the civil action, if you decide that you're not going to bother to show up when this finally goes to court, nobody's going to issue a warrant for your arrest. You're not going to be charged with contempt of court. You're not going to be charged with a failure to appear. Instead, there's going to be a default judgment, which means that since you didn't bother to show up to court, you're accepting the charges against you, or the ruling against you, and you will be adjudicated responsible for whatever it is spelled out in the court. And you will be subject to whatever penalty is handled down by the court. If there's a monetary penalty, you'll be charged with it, and so on and so forth. See, civil courts are interesting. It's kind of like you get yourself into a no-win situation in a civil lawsuit. Now, depending on what the rules are in the state regarding getting served, there are ways to serve someone even if they're not physically handed the paperwork. It was done in the Goddard lawsuit. It was done with me, and it can be done to Timmy. And that is that you can be served remotely. They can put an ad in the newspaper. Tim Holset still declares himself a resident of East Grand Forks, Minnesota, of Polk County, Minnesota. And because of that, Tim Holset can be notified through the media that he is being sued. And they could even notify him through Facebook. Say, Timmy, you're being sued. Come on up to Ohio. Pay us a visit. Let us know what your take is on all the accusations that are in this little document. Yeah, don't be a coward, Timmy. Come on up. Come on up, meet your friends. So we're going to get to see if Timothy Holset is going to run away yet again. And it really isn't going to matter, other than it's going to show that Timothy Holset is a coward. That even when Timothy Holset is not subject to arrest, he will still not show up. It's because Timothy Charles Holset is afraid of the truth. Because he knows he did wrong. He won't admit it, but he knows he did wrong. Now, other defendants, like Randy, might try some of her super-duper dandy officer of the court stuff to try and get out of her little part in this, but that's not going to work. And people like Timmy like Randy have a problem, because Randy is the deep pockets in the lawsuit. See, Randy is the wealthy real estate broker. She has all those properties. She has what's known as tangible assets that can be attached in any judgment. See, there's something that needs to be realized about civil lawsuits, and when you're filing what is essentially a liability lawsuit. And in Florida, as well as many other states, I'm not sure about Ohio yet because I haven't checked into this, there is something called joint and several liability. It basically means shared liability. It means everybody in a lawsuit that is adjudicated culpable or responsible shares in that responsibility. And that shared responsibility applies to monetary damages. Now, there's going to be a judgment if the jury decides in the favor of the plaintiff. That's going to have to be spread among everyone. And if one or more of these parties is unable to pay the monetary damages cited by the court, the plaintiffs are going to go after the person with the deepest pockets. And guess who the person with the deepest pockets is probably going to be? It is the person with the deepest pockets that's going to have the most to lose in this action. It is the person with the deepest pockets that's going to have to get a really, really lawyer. It's not going to take the stupid road seeking out the advice of E-Clause or people like him. They're not going to be bringing in the Postmaster of the World or JFK Jr. or anyone else in that ilk. They're going to bring a bar licensed attorney like Phil McConnell's doing. Phil McConnell finally got a bar licensed attorney. And he's better off because of it. You know, he could be in a far worse situation right now if he had not gotten a bar licensed attorney. And Preacher Dan is not smart enough to get a bar licensed attorney. The guy is probably going to try and defend himself. I'm hoping for that. That'll be a circus. And there's no telling what Tim Holset is going to do or not do. You know, because I'm betting that Tim Holset is going to take the stupid route of not showing up in court. That he's going to fight getting served, and he's not going to show up in court. And what that's going to do, number one, is going to show that Timothy Charles Holset is a coward. Now, we always knew that Tim Holset was a coward. And him not showing up in court voluntarily is going to show that Tim Holset is a coward. You know, Tim Holset seems to think that he's going to take his little Facebook account and he's going to win this lawsuit for Preacher Dan. Not going to happen. He's going to make things a hell of a lot worse, like he did for Field McConnell. Oh, Preacher Dan having Timothy Charles Holset on the team, so to speak, is going to go the same route as Field McConnell. It's going to be a total disaster, and I look forward to it. I'm happy that Tim Holset is helping Preacher Dan out, because Preacher Dan will be gone in short order. Timothy Holset will make sure of that. Timothy Charles Holset will have destroyed yet another ally. And the same is going to hold true of the other defendants. Timothy Holset is going to tear them down as well. Because anyone or anything that Tim Charles Holset touches eventually gets destroyed. Tim Holset is going to destroy all these people. He's going to ruin all these people. They're all going to regret the day that they ever met Timothy Charles Holset. Now, it all depends, of course, on where this lawsuit goes and what the next step is that the plaintiffs take in this action. The filing in the Ohio court is very preliminary. It's the first step in a very long process. But I would suspect that any day now we're going to get a date set by the court. For a preliminary hearing. You know, the plaintiffs are going to march into court and they're going to get involved in the first hearing as to how things are going to move forward. Additional information will be brought forth to the court and probably requests for actions regarding serving the various defendants in the case. And there's going to be requests for an asset search. Because at some point in the process, the plaintiffs are going to want to know how much money these people have, what kind of assets they have, because they're going to have to collect upon judgment from these people. So this is part of the process. So detailed information about who's got how much money and everything is going to come out. And so we're eventually going to find out how much Preacher Dan is actually worth. We're going to find out how much money he's got sitting in the bank, how much money he's got sitting in all these various accounts. We're going to know what he owns, what kind of car he drives, what kind of computer he has, all his cameras, everything he owns, right down to the toothpick in the bathroom. Because that's what happens in civil court. And this is all public information. This is not a closed hearing. This is your run-of-the-mill standard civil lawsuit. And the discovery is going to be a lot of fun. Because there's people just chomping at the bit to send defense to send to the plaintiffs in the Daniel J. Lee case all the information they have on Tim Holset. going back 12 or more years. The same is true of Preacher Dan. All his former wives and girlfriends will be sending information to the lawyers. Anybody that's an enemy of Randy Erickson's probably going to be sending information to the court, along with Field McConnell's enemies and the enemies of every single one of the defendants in the case. All this dirty laundry is going to be sent to the court, and all this dirty laundry will be available to the general public. So we're all going to know by the time the shit hits the fan in this small Ohio courthouse what exactly is going to happen, and we're going to know all the intimate details of all these people. We're going to know a lot about their lives. We're going to know their financial situation, how much money these people make. If they're employed, we're going to know who they work for, because this is in the discovery process. They have to provide their sources of income to the court. This is a requirement, and you can't hold back. You can't hide, because then you're getting into criminal contempt. You're getting into tampering with evidence. You have to disclose everything, every source of income you have, regardless of what it is, has to be given to the court. So, welcome to Timmy's world. Welcome to Daniel's world. You guys all thought it would be cool to support these people. You thought it would be cool to spread these rumors about people being Satanists and child traffickers and all this other stuff. Now you're going to learn an expensive lesson. Whether it be monetarily or otherwise, you're going to learn an expensive lesson. So you're better off not doing that. You're better off doing things in general, talk about things in general, or concentrate on famous people. I mean, you can trash talk Hillary Clinton until you're blue in the face. You can trash talk Vice President Pence until you're blue in the face, because they're public figures. But there's a problem when you do that, and that's called civil liability, because if they were motivated, they could come after you, because you've gone beyond the public figure exemption, and you've also gone beyond criminal liability, because you're pretending to be officials of the United States government and representatives of the United States government and contractors for the United States government. Those are felonies. And this is going to come out in court, because they're going to get up, the defense is going to get up, and they're going to say that the people writing these defamatory things about them are declaring themselves officials of the United States government. That Field McConnell and Timothy Charles Holset has stated repeatedly in public that they are part of the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force, and that they have very close contact with the President of the United States. That's going to come out in civil court. And somebody in that group, namely Timothy Charles Holset, is going to have to get up on the stand, put his hand on the Bible, and swear under God, in the name of God, that God he believes in, that he is a member of the Pedophile Task Force, the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force. And if it cannot be proven that he actually is a member of the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force, that's perjury. And when you commit perjury in civil court, the summary judgment is almost automatic, because you've proven yourself a liar and your credibility is shot. And since you're a defendant in the action, you can be adjudicated as responsible for what was done to the 4 plaintiffs in a case, and whatever punishment the court hands down, you're responsible for. You're playing a grown-up game here, Mr. Holset, and you're about to join the land of the grown-ups. So, what we will be doing is we're going to see as time goes on what happens with the court. I'm going to be calling up the court Monday and see what the procedures are of getting any transcripts, any filings, and so on and so forth, to get the official court records to see just exactly where the civil lawsuit is going and how they are going to handle the process of getting everybody served and who has been served so far and so on and so forth. And again, anyone out there that has any information on this case, you can email me at mertwitness1@gmail.com and give me whatever information you have that I can verify and use in any further monologues or on my murder-thons that we have during the week. So, I hope everybody has a good Sunday. I hope that you're avoiding this virus. I hope that things turn out well for everybody and that they're able to bite the bullet on not having this thing. But keep vigilant, follow the basic rules of hygiene and so on and so forth. Do not panic buy and all that. And I will be on social media doing my tweeting and facing and all this other stuff to keep up with what is going on in the wonderful, wild, and wacky world of Timothy Holset and the defendants in the civil lawsuit. So until then, this is William K. Murtaugh, Mert Witness 1. Have a good one.